Hey everyone, how's it going? Elliot here and welcome to the Retro Future. I have a very special video for you today. It's not often that you get to see a prototype of a Game Boy game. Now I picked this up from Yahoo Auctions using Sendico, which is a proxy service, and that's exactly the kind of place that you're going to find awesome little finds like this. This is a prototype of this game right here called Outburst. And I think what's so special about this as a piece of history is that it predates the retail version that we were able to buy in stores. Now obviously this is a Japanese game. It was known as Raging Fighter everywhere else in the world, but without this little thing right here, which came from within the four walls of Konami, this would not have existed. And I think that's a super cool thing. So in today's video, we're going to check it out. We're going to see what's different about it, if anything. There's also going to be a really cool cameo from another YouTuber. And yeah, we're going to take a look at it. So without any further ado, let's do that. So this is it right here. Now there's a sticker on the front which is really good, and you can actually see that there is some age to it. There's little brown specks and stuff on there. Now what the sticker translates to is sample and then outburst, so it has the actual name of the game on there. Now that's a really good thing. It's also a less good thing, but we're going to find out why that would be in a minute. But the reason that it is a good thing is because it's very, very unlikely to be fake. Now the reason I say that is because these boards that you have here, this grey shell, the board underneath, and then there's a sort of a header, the socket, I think that's what it's called. All of that is actually a generic thing. So they would have been dished out in the masses to all of the game developers. The only thing about this that's actually unique is this right here, this little black chip that you can see, which is called an EEPROM. Now, this EEPROM is made by Texas Instruments. It's a company that we're all familiar with. And there's another little sticker on there, which is also quite aged if you were to look at it in person. Now, that doesn't really mean a lot because you could just pick up a chip and flash it again. But it's always just good to see signs of age on these things because it means that it's unlikely to be faked. Because what you could do is buy some EEPROMs or reflash them and then just dump any game onto it. I could put Zelda on here and then sell it as a Zelda prototype. So unfortunately that kind of stuff has happened because there's quite a bit of money in these things, but I picked this up for $100. There's quite a lot of age to it, and it's also not the most special of games in the world. I did pick up the actual retail version so that we could take a look at it. So there's the retail version next to the prototype, and you can see there's quite a lot of differences in the cartridges. The actual shell is vastly different, of course. There's also some differences on the back. So on the back of the retail one, there's a small game bit screw, but on the actual prototype one, it's a Phillips one, which is quite interesting. So now if we undo this one with the Phillips screw and we take a look at it, there we go. You can see it is obviously vastly different there. But if I take this out, you can see it does actually say Nintendo on the back there, which is really cool. And it also says Nintendo on there. It says 1989, copyright 1989. And then you can see there as well, slightly better view of the socket there for the EEPROM. Underneath this sticker, you might be able to see there's a slight indentation in it. Is a small little window that when it's exposed to UV, it will erase the data. So that was just done to mass erase things that people don't want going out into the public, like this. You can also see as well just how different the case design is of the back of the game. But anyway, that's enough of the actual hardware. Let's start talking about some of the software. Now, as I said at the start of this video, on the label it says sample. Now, often with these, before the game was actually released, it was sent out to magazines and different TV shows and whatnot so that they could actually get some early gameplay of the game. Another reason that it would have been a sample is so that when the game developers were testing the final version of the game, they could dish them out to different people to sit through and ensure that there are no bugs and stuff like that. So this could be a very, very late build, or it could be an early build. Now, to find out, the best thing to do, besides to play it side by side and try and compare it, which is obviously quite a difficult thing to do, the best thing to do is dump the ROM, take the data, put it into a hex editor, and then compare the things side by side. So I did that. I plugged in my Game Boy game into the game reader, I took the ROM, put it into the hex editor, and yeah, what am I looking at here? Hello, is that Tony? Oh, you're right, mate. How's it going? Yeah, I know you're hard for games. You should get that scene too. Yeah, I was just wondering if you might be able to help me out with a project. I've got this really rare Game Boy prototype game, and I've put it into the hex editor as well as the retail ROM and compared them side by side, but I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Hey everybody, I'm Tony from the Hard for Games channel here on YouTube, and big thank you to Elliot for allowing me to come onto his show. So it's always exciting when I see these Game Boy prototype sample cartridges come up because you never really know what you're gonna get, and I've seen a number of them. I've seen a few, like a Final Fantasy Adventure cart that came my way a couple of years back that was truly just a sample of what the retail game was. It was retail exact, the final build of the game. And I've seen others that have been a little bit more rudimentary, full of glitches and even debug options. But this cart seems to be in between those two and toward the finished end of the spectrum. When I received the ROM, the first thing I did was throw it into a hex editor, and of course it just sort of looks like a garbled mess of code here.
You're damn right it does.
But what we can do is compare it to the retail version of the game to see if there are any differences at all. And it seems we have a few snippets of difference here, all in the header area, but unfortunately nothing else throughout the rest of the code is any different. When I threw the two ROMs into a Game Boy header analyzer and editor, everything was the same except for the global checksum. So what does this tell us? Well, again, this means that it is very, very near final. As we can see in this comparison here, graphics, introduction, and the menu are all the same. The fights begin the same way, and the AI is even acting similar in each fight. Since the cartridge itself says sample on it in Japanese, we can probably assume that it was sent out to like a reviewer magazine or one of Konami's partners to take a look at the near final build of the game. Something that would be representative of a finished product, essentially. But regardless of the fact that it probably has no meaningful differences, it's always good to find and preserve content like this for preservation's sake, and of course be on the lookout for it in the future. And not to mention the fact that having a prototype Game Boy cartridge with a big old EEPROM sticking out of it looks pretty good on your shelf. So regardless, good find.
Massive thank you to Tony for doing that for me. Honestly, so cool. I pretty much don't even need to be here. He covered everything. But I thought what I would do is just take a little look at the game itself because I've never played it before. So yeah, this is just a fighting game. It's a pretty good fighting game. It's nothing too special. I don't really know what makes a fantastic fighting game because I don't play a lot of fighting games, but everything is nice. It has a good soundtrack and there's nice animations. Obviously on this DMG screen there's quite a lot of motion blur or ghosting, whatever you want to call it, which is never ideal in a fighting game because some of the animations kind of get lost in the blur. But it's a cool little game. I quite enjoy it. But what I said at the start is really what makes me interested in these things, and that's that it's a prototype of a game. And I just think that is absolutely fascinating because without these prototypes, we wouldn't have the games that we know today. And the success of Nintendo came from the Game Boy. So it's just such an awesome piece of history. I really hope you have enjoyed this video. It's certainly something different, taking a look at a prototype. Massive thank you again to Tony from Hard for Games. Please go and check out his channel. He has some amazing stuff. Telling you've come from me, I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing and leave a like if you enjoyed. And let me know in the comments what you think of this awesome little piece of history. And I'll catch you all in the next video. Goodbye.